In front of 500 relatives, my mother-in-law slapped my mother while my husband stood there in silence. I took my mom and walked away. But before leaving, I said just 8 words, and my in-laws instantly turned pale with fear. Tuda. Before 500 relatives, my mother-in-law slapped my mom while my husband stood silent and, then, I will. Guck. https://www.youtube.com/watchfractakenv is gelijk aan _7.way Smack. A crisp, resounding slap exploded in the Coopers' living room. My mother covered her face, stumbling backward a couple of steps, nearly falling to the floor. 5 bright red finger marks on her left cheek were already swelling rapidly. Her eyes were wide open in sheer disbelief. "I'm educating your daughter on your behalf, Helen." My mother-in-law, Margaret Cooper, stood with her hands on her hips, her voice shrill enough to pierce the ceiling. She's been married into the Cooper family for 3 years, and her stomach is completely flat. And you have the nerve to come to my house and speak up for her? Today was Saturday. My mom heard I hadn't been feeling well and specifically brought over a pot of homemade chicken noodle soup. At the dining table, Margaret immediately started pressuring me about having a baby. She went on and about how this neighbor's daughter-in-law was pregnant with her second child, and how that friend's grandson just had a baby shower. My mom couldn't bear to listen anymore, and gently said, "The kids have their own plans." That single sentence earned her a slap across the face. "Mom, are you okay?" I supported my mother, my fingers trembling violently. Tears welled up in my mom's eyes, but she shook her head, giving me a look that pleaded with me not to act impulsively. I whipped my head around and glared at James Cooper, my husband of 3 years. At this moment, he was staring down at his plate, his fork hovering in midair like a wooden mannequin. His Adam's apple bobbed, his lips parted slightly, but not a single word came out of his mouth. "James Cooper," I called his name. He looked up at me, his eyes darting away guiltily before looking back down. On the other side of the table, my father-in-law, Arthur Cooper, let out a dry cough. "Let's all just talk this out calmly," he muttered, his tone as weak as if he hadn't eaten in days. My sister-in-law, Chloe, casually continued eating her salad, a smirk of amusement playing on her lips, as if watching a reality TV show. "Talk calmly? Do I need to talk calmly with her?" Margaret's voice grew even louder, her finger almost poking my mother's nose. "A hen that can't lay eggs. Our family must have been cursed for 8 generations to marry such a worthless liability." "Margaret." My mother suddenly spoke up. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried an icy hardness I had never heard before. "Please show some respect. My daughter is not here for you to degrade." "Respect? You think you deserve respect?" Margaret shrieked like a cat with its tail stepped on. "Look at your background. You run a fish stand down at the public market. My son marrying your daughter was charity. You should be down on your knees thanking us, yet you dare to talk back?" A freezing chill washed over my entire body. I scanned the faces in the room. My father-in-law's avoidance. My sister-in-law's apathy. My mother-in-law's sheer arrogance. And James. The man who stood at the altar and vowed to protect me for the rest of his life. Right now, he was a clay statue, lacking even the courage to meet my eyes. 3 years. Married for 3 years, I had been an unpaid maid, serving his entire family. Margaret nitpicked my cooking for being too salty or too bland. Chloe felt entitled to raid my vanity and steal my expensive skincare and makeup. Arthur treated me like I was invisible. And James? James would only just say, "That's just how my mom is, Lily. Just let it go. We are family, don't sweat the small stuff." I endured and endured, believing in keeping the peace. But this slap didn't just strike my mother's face. It knocked me entirely awake. "James Cooper," I called out to him again. My voice was so eerily calm that it even surprised me. "Do you have absolutely nothing to say?" He raised his head, his face pale. His lips moved. "Lily. Mom was just acting on impulse. Just don't take it to heart." Acting on impulse. What a great excuse. I nodded, took a deep breath, held my mother's arm, and turned toward the door. Stop right there. Who said you could leave? Margaret screeched from behind. We are not done talking. Either you get pregnant immediately, or you get a divorce. The Cooper family doesn't need a woman who can't give us an heir. I didn't stop walking. I headed straight for the front door. Lily, come back here. This time, it was James's voice, carrying a trace of panic. My hand was already on the doorknob. I turned it and pulled the door open. The cool April Seattle wind hit my burning face, bringing a slight trace of relief. Just as my left foot was about to cross the threshold, I stopped. I turned around. My gaze swept across the faces in the living room once more. Margaret's rage, Arthur's frown, Chloe's curiosity, and James. He had stood up, seemingly letting out a breath of relief, assuming I was going to turn back and apologize. I looked directly into his eyes and spoke clearly, articulating every single syllable. James Cooper, we are getting a divorce today. Exactly 8 words. The color instantly drained from his face, leaving him as white as a sheet of paper. Margaret's screeching came to an abrupt halt, her mouth still hanging open like a fish out of water. Arthur dropped his coffee mug on the hardwood floor with a crash. Chloe dropped her fork. Time seemed to stand still. Holding my trembling mother, I turned and walked into the night. Behind me was silence. Just as the door clicked shut, I heard Margaret's hysterical, breakdown-like scream and the sound of something glass shattering. The night wind blew away my last shred of hesitation. 3 years of marriage ended in 8 words. I got in the car, closed the door, and completely shut out the lights of the Cooper house and Margaret's muffled cursing. My mom sat in the passenger seat, her hands still covering her face, her shoulders shaking. Lily. My mom finally spoke, her voice hoarse. I'm sorry. Mom dragged you down. Mom, what are you talking about? I started the engine. It's my fault. I never should have let you suffer this kind of humiliation. But you just said you want a divorce. My mom turned to look at me, her face full of worry. You were just saying that out of anger, right? Married couples fight. But you can't throw around words that hurt the relationship. It wasn't out of anger. I interrupted her calmly, turning onto the main avenue. It was 10 p.m. The city's neon lights streaked across the windshield. Lily, my mom grew anxious. Divorce is a huge deal. What will you do after? What will the neighbors say? Besides, you're 28. Is 28 ancient? I asked. My mom fell silent. Mom, didn't that slap hurt? I asked her, my fingers gently brushing against their red, swollen cheek. It hurt. The stoplight turned red. I slowly brought the car to a halt. It's not just my face that hurts. My heart hurts. You didn't raise me just so I could let people walk all over me, and you certainly didn't raise me so you could get slapped because of me. But James, he usually treats you all right. My mom's voice grew quieter. All right. He treated me all right for the first 6 months of our marriage. He remembered my favorite foods, bought me gifts on holidays, and picked me up when I worked late. And then Margaret moved in with us, and everything changed. He became busy. He became tired. Whenever I had a conflict with his mother, he was perpetually absent or stood on her side. The last time I had a miscarriage and was hospitalized, my fever spiked to 102 degrees. Through the haze, I heard a nurse ask, "Where is your husband? Why is only your mother here?" The chill in my heart at that moment made me shiver harder than the fever. Mom, the light is green. I stepped on the gas pedal. If I swallow this today, tomorrow they'll think slapping me is perfectly fine. The day after tomorrow, they might actually hit me. Is that the life you want for me? My mom remained silent for a long time before letting out a heavy sigh. I pulled into the old suburban neighborhood where I grew up. This was a modest, 2-bedroom craftsman house I lived in with my parents before I got married. After my dad passed away from cancer 2 years ago, my mom lived here alone. Stay here tonight, my mom said. I've kept your room clean. My nose suddenly stung. No matter how much you suffer out in the world, there's always a place to come back to. I guess that's what a childhood home means. Just as we parked and were walking up to the porch, my phone rang. It was James. I stared at his name flashing on the screen, feeling for the first time that the name was incredibly foreign. For 3 years, I answered his calls the second they rang. Even if I was in the shower, I'd dry my hands to answer, terrified he had an emergency. Now, I didn't want to pick up. The ringtone persisted. It stopped, then started again. Answer it, my mom said softly. You have to make things clear. I pressed accept, didn't bring it to my ear, and put it straight on speaker. Lily, where are you? James's voice was frantic. In the background, I could hear Margaret crying. Come back quickly, Mom fainted from anger. If she fainted, call 911. Calling me is useless, I said. And those 8 words I said? I meant them. Are you insane, Lily? His voice suddenly skyrocketed. You want a divorce over this tiny thing? My mom is your elder. What's wrong with her saying a few words to you? Getting slapped once wouldn't kill anyone. Can't you just be the bigger person? Every word felt like an ice pick, stabbing into my heart. Tiny thing. Won't kill anyone. Be the bigger person. So, in his eyes, my mother getting slapped was a tiny thing, and me asking for a divorce meant I was insane. James Cooper. Listen to me very carefully. I took a deep breath. Meet me at the county courthouse tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. If you don't show up, I'll hire a lawyer and serve you. That's it. Lily, don't you dare. I hung up and turned off my phone completely. Lily, are you really? My mom's eyes reddened again. Mom, I helped her up the porch steps. I used to be too weak, and it made you worry. But starting today, I won't be anymore. Opening the door to the old house, a familiar scent rushed over me. My bedroom looked exactly as it did before my wedding. The stuffed animals I loved in college were still sitting on my desk. After showering and lying in bed, exhaustion hit me like a tidal wave. My phone was off, but my brain wouldn't shut down. The 3 years of marriage flashed before my eyes like a movie reel. The first time I met Margaret, she nitpicked my height, my degree, and my family background. At our wedding, she insisted I personally toast every single extended member of the Cooper family. I stood in high heels for 4 hours until my heels bled. The day after we moved into our marital home, she showed up uninvited and completely rearranged my kitchen to suit her habits. After my miscarriage, she brought me some strange herbal supplement and said, "Drink this quickly so you can get pregnant again next month." And James? He would always say, "Mom is getting old. She means well. Can't you just be understanding?" Understanding. Tolerance. Being the bigger person. Is this what a woman is supposed to be? In the darkness, I lay with my eyes open until the sky began to lighten. At 6 a.m., I turned on my phone. Dozens of missed calls. 99 plus text messages. James, Lily, I was wrong, please come back. I spoke too harshly last night, I apologize. But you can't just throw the word divorce around. Mom is actually at the hospital now. Come see her. Apologize to her. And we can put this behind us. I'm begging you, okay? There was a barrage of voice memos from Margaret. I tapped one, and her shrill voice immediately blasted out. Lily, you ungrateful wretch. How has my son ever wronged you? You dare ask for a divorce? Who would want you if you're divorced? Even if you got on your knees and begged the Cooper family, we wouldn't take you back. And a text from Chloe, Lily, Mom is really sick from being so mad. Come back and admit you were wrong. We are family. Why make such a scene? Message after message. Every single word was about how it was my fault. I needed to apologize. I needed to admit I was wrong. I needed to turn back. I didn't reply to a single one. I blocked and deleted all of them. At 7 a.m., I got up, washed my face, and put on a sharp, professional outfit. The woman in the mirror had faint dark circles under her eyes, but her gaze possessed a clarity I hadn't seen in 3 years. Lily, are you really going? My mom was in the kitchen making oatmeal, looking deeply concerned. I took a sip of water. Mom, eat breakfast yourself. I have some errands to run. Where are you going? First to the bank, then to a law firm, I said. I need to figure out exactly how this divorce will work in this state and how much money the Coopers owe me. I'm getting every single penny back. The spoon in my mom's hand clattered into the pot. You're taking them to court? Depends on the situation. I put on my coat. If James signs the uncontested divorce papers willingly, we part peacefully. If he makes it difficult. I smiled, leaving the sentence unfinished. But that smile must have been pretty cold, because my mom looked at me like she didn't recognize me. Before leaving, I hugged her. Mom, don't worry. Your daughter isn't a pushover anymore. I drove downtown. The morning sun was beautiful, streaming through the windshield. I suddenly remembered that 3 years ago, on a morning just like this, I left this house in a wedding dress. I thought it was the beginning of my happiness. Turns out, it was just the prologue to a nightmare. Good thing I woke up. My phone rang again. It was an unknown number. I answered it. Lily. You actually blocked me? James's voice trembled with fury. Speak if you have something to say. I'm busy. Are you really going to the courthouse at 9? Be there. Bring your ID and your W-2s. Don't forget. His voice suddenly softened. Lily, stop causing a scene, okay? I was wrong. I apologize on behalf of my mom. Come back and let's just live a good life. I promise I won't let you suffer anymore. James, I cut him off. Do you remember what you said to me the day I was in the hospital having a miscarriage? Silence on the other end. You said, we are still young, we can always have another one. I spoke slowly. But you must have heard what your mother said outside the hospital room. She said, good thing she lost it, it would have been a disaster if it was a girl. That was just Mom talking out of anger. Was it anger, or the truth? You know better than I do. My voice was light, but every word carried weight. James, I don't hate your mother. Truly. I hate you. I hate that you knew she was wrong but never stood up for me. I hate that every time I needed you, you weren't there. I hate that you made me feel like my devotion over the past 3 years was a complete joke. So, if you're not at the courthouse at 9, my lawyer will serve you. I hung up and blocked the number. I needed to see a lawyer first to understand my rights and find out where the money in my bank account went. Over our 3 years of marriage, both my salary and James's salary went into a joint checking account. Margaret had suggested putting our money together made it easier to manage. James agreed, and I didn't object. Last week, I checked the account and found that instead of the $80,000 that should have been there, the balance was less than $12,000. I asked James, and he stammered out that he had loaned it to a relative. I believed him at the time. I didn't believe him now. If marriage is a war, I refuse to lose completely. What was mine, I was going to take back down to the last cent. Including my dignity. The air conditioning in the law firm was blasting, but my palms were sweating. Miss Davis, based on what you've told me, I recommend filing for a temporary restraining order to freeze the marital assets immediately. Attorney Sterling was in his early 40s, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, speaking at a measured pace. Even though it's a joint account, you have pay stubs proving your individual income deposits. These are marital funds subject to equitable distribution. He does not have the right to unilaterally dissipate them. And if the money has already been moved? My voice was a little dry. Attorney Sterling adjusted his glasses. As long as we can prove malicious dissipation of assets, the family court judge will penalize him during the division of property, awarding you a larger share, or ordering him to reimburse you. You mentioned you noticed the discrepancy last week. Do you remember the date? Last Thursday, April 15th. I have a great memory, especially concerning money. Excellent. We need to subpoena the bank statements immediately to trace the funds. Attorney Sterling handed me a representation agreement. Miss Davis, Adivor's trial isn't just about emotional breakdown, it's a battle over property and rights. You need to be mentally prepared. I took the pen and signed my name. I pressed down so hard, the tip almost tore the paper. 3 years ago, I signed a marriage license, thinking it was forever. Today, I was signing this to end it all. Mr. Sterling, I have another question. I looked up. If I want to seek spousal support or unequal distribution based on my contributions, is that possible? For example, I took on 100% of the household chores. I took care of his parents, his mother has health issues, and I drove her to her doctor's appointments every other week, rain or shine. I pulled strings to get his sister a job. I listed them one by one. My voice was flat, like I was talking about someone else's life. Can any of this be factored in? A flash of surprise crossed Sterling's eyes before he nodded. In Washington state, courts aim for a just and equitable division. While there is no strict hourly wage for domestic labor, the court absolutely considers the economic circumstances and non-financial contributions of a spouse to the marriage. It's a very strong negotiating chip, especially if we can prove you sacrificed career advancement to care for his family. I don't just want the money, I said. I want fairness. By the time I left the law firm, it was almost 9 a.m. I had over a dozen missed calls from unknown numbers. James was looking for me, or rather, the Cooper family was looking for me. I ignored them and drove straight to Bank of America. In the VIP room, the branch manager, Sarah, was a sorority sister of mine from college. I was actually the one who helped refer her for this job years ago. Lily, what's all this? Sarah stared wide-eyed at the subpoena request and attorney authorization letter I handed her. Pull the transaction history for this joint account for the past year. Hurry, I said concisely. Sarah didn't ask questions. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. The transactions popped up on the screen. My salary was direct deposited on the 15th of every month. $6,000 after taxes. James's salary was also deposited on the 15th, $5,000 after taxes. Over 3 years, with bonuses. We should have had a little over $80,000 saved. Last Wednesday, the balance was $12,000. Today, the balance was $8,000. Sarah froze. Lily, it's only been a week. And another $4,000 is gone. Keep looking, my voice tightened. Sarah clicked into the details. The screen scrolled. April 16. POS purchase, Zales Jewelers, $2,500. April 17, Zelle transfer to Chloe Cooper, $1,500. April 18. POS purchase, Apex Auto Service, $1,000. April 20. ATM cash withdrawal, $3,000. Chloe is my sister-in-law, I pointed at the Zelle transfer. What about the rest? Can you see what was purchased? Sarah clicked a few more times. The jewelry store purchase was a $14K gold bracelet. The auto service was maintenance for a vehicle. I leaned back in the chair, suddenly finding it hilarious. The day before my mother-in-law slapped my mom, she bought a gold bracelet. Using whose money? The money in my joint account with James, transferring $1,500 to my sister-in-law. Was it a loan or a gift? The car maintenance was for James's SUV. The down payment for that car came from the wedding gift money my late father gave me. Yet the title only had James's name on it. At the time, Margaret said, a man needs a nice car for his ego. James didn't object, and like an idiot, I agreed. Go further back, I said. Look at February and March. Sarah kept scrolling. March, wire transfer, $15,000 to Margaret Cooper. February, Zelle transfer, -$2,000 to Chloe Cooper. January, Best Buy purchase, $2,500 a high-end gaming PC for James. December, travel agency, $4,500, a luxury senior cruise for Margaret. Lily. Sarah's voice was hesitant. These are all coming out of your joint account. Did you not know? I didn't know. I truly didn't know. I thought James was just a bit of a mama's boy, a bit weak-willed. I thought Margaret was just domineering. And Chloe was just selfish. But I never imagined they treated me as their personal ATM. For 3 years, I never spent a dime of my own salary on myself. I wanted to save up to buy a bigger house. I thought about how much kids would cost in the future. I thought about saving for our aging parents. And the result? My blood, sweat, and tears turned into a gold bracelet on Margaret's wrist, designer bags for Chloe, golf clubs for Arthur, and Endelstech upgrades for James. Meanwhile, I was wearing 3-year-old coats and using a lagging iPhone, rushing home after work every day to cook and wash dishes. Only to be berated for not knowing how to make money. Only knowing how to spend it. Sarah, I heard my own voice, frighteningly calm. Print all these statements out for me. And check if this account is linked to any investment portfolios or high-yield certificates of deposit. Okay, hold on. During the few minutes of waiting, I stared at the numbers on the screen. My heart felt like it was growing old, bit by bit. Turns out, when your heart goes completely cold, you don't feel pain anymore. Just a hollow numbness. Found it, Sarah suddenly said. Last June, a $60,000 certificate of deposit was purchased. It's locked for 3 years, maturing next June. The sole owner listed is James Cooper. $60,000. I closed my eyes. Last June, my dad had been gone for 6 months, my mom was in a bad place mentally, and I wanted her to move in with us. Margaret vehemently opposed it. A married daughter is like spilled water, she had said. There is no rule that says a mother-in-law gets to live with her son-in-law. James also urged me, saying it would be inconvenient. I finally compromised and hired a part-time caregiver for my mom, paying the $1,000 a month entirely out of my own pocket. At the time, James told me money was tight and we'd have to put off investing for the future. Turns out, he didn't put it off. He just bought it without telling me. Can it be withdrawn early? I asked. Not without a severe early withdrawal penalty. And it requires the account owner to do it in person. Sarah looked at me with deep sympathy. Lily, what are you going to do? What was I going to do? I opened my eyes, looking at the dense pages of transfer records. Call my lawyer, I said. James and Margaret Cooper are suspected of fraudulent dissipation of marital assets. I stood up. Sarah, do me a favor. Get these statements certified. And I might need you to testify to the authenticity of these records. Sarah nodded firmly. Lily, you got it. I'll help you. Stepping out of the bank, the sun was blinding. I stood on the steps and pulled out my phone. James was calling from yet another new number. This time, I answered. Lily, what the hell is this? A letter of representation was just faxed to my HR department. His voice was frantic and furious. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? My coworkers are asking me what's going on. You weren't at the courthouse. I watched the traffic on the street. James, I gave you a chance to do this with dignity. My mom is in the hospital. I have to be here with her. He yelled, the sound of a hospital PA system faintly playing in the background. Can't you just be understanding for once? Do you have to blow this out of proportion? Why is your mom in the hospital? I asked. Because you made her blood pressure spike to 180. What did the doctor say? How long is she admitted for? What's the copay? Silence. He couldn't answer. Because she wasn't actually admitted. Right. I laughed. James, if your mom were actually in the hospital, your first reaction would be to curse me out, not complain about being humiliated at work. If your mom were actually sick, you'd be in her room, not calling me to demand why I embarrassed you. And I cut him off. You better give me an explanation for the money in the account. The $60,000 CD, the $15,000 transfer, the jewelry, the auto shop. What is all that? A long silence followed. When he finally spoke, his voice softened, carrying a hint of a whine. Lily, I was wrong. I really was. That money. Mom said she just needed to borrow it for a bit, she'll pay it back. And the CD. I bought that. I wanted to give you a surprise. When it matures next year, the interest alone will be thousands. A surprise. What a massive surprise. James, I took a deep breath. I'll say this one last time. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., meet me at the mediator's office with your lawyer or at the courthouse. Bring your ID, and you are going to return every single cent that belongs to me. Otherwise, I will see you in civil court. And it won't just be a simple divorce. Your mother and your sister will be subpoenaed for receiving stolen marital assets. Lily! You wouldn't dare. Try me. I hung up and blocked the number. I got into the car but didn't start the engine right away. I leaned against the steering wheel, my shoulders shaking. I wasn't crying. I was laughing. Laughing at my own stupidity. Laughing at how I lived like a clown for 3 years. I laughed until tears finally fell. But I only allowed myself 3 minutes. I wiped my face and started the car. Next step, go to the house, pack my things, find a new apartment, and start over. As I drove past the courthouse, I slowed down. It was busy outside. Good thing James didn't show up. Since he didn't want a dignified exit, I was going to give him a brutal one. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Attorney Sterling, Miss Davis. I received the bank statements. The evidence of asset dissipation is solid. Also, my investigator just found out that your mother-in-law, Margaret Cooper, has a property deeded in her name. It was purchased after your marriage. This is likely marital property. We need to talk. I replied with 2 words, on my way. I merged into traffic, driving in the opposite direction of my old home. Everything that was mine, I was going to take back, including the 3 years I lost, and that naive girl who thought love could conquer all. I pulled the car over to the side of the road, staring at Attorney Sterling's text message for a full minute. A property purchased after our marriage? How did I not know about this? My fingers typed rapidly. Mr. Sterling, are you sure? Whose name is on the deed? When was it bought? Sterling replied instantly, positive. The deed is registered solely under Margaret Cooper. It was purchased in September of last year, the 2nd year of your marriage. Paid in full in cash. Total price. $2,000, 0. The wire transfer originated from James Cooper's personal checking account. Last September. I closed my eyes, my brain racing to recall. During that time, James was working late a lot. When I asked, he said he was slammed with a project. There was also a period where he suddenly claimed he wanted to invest in the stock market and asked me to deposit more of my paycheck into the joint account, saying he had insider info to make a quick buck. I had just gotten a promotion, bumping my salary up. Thinking I was helping build our future, I started dumping almost my entire paycheck into the joint account, keeping barely anything for my own expenses. So, his investment was buying his mother a condo. My chest tightened as if an invisible hand was squeezing my heart. Mr. Sterling, I need a copy of the closing documents and the wire transfer records. Can you get the exact address? Already pulled it. The address is Unit 502, the Grandview Condos. 2-bed. 1 bath. The Grandview Condos. I knew that complex. It wasn't far from our house, a solid, mid-range development finished last year. Margaret even mentioned it once, saying an old friend lived there and the amenities were nice. It wasn't an old friend. It was her. Miss Davis, if you were unaware of this, this purchase constitutes fraudulent concealment of marital assets. Under state family law, a spouse who hides or transfers marital property during the marriage can be heavily penalized, up to forfeiting their entire share of the hidden asset. We need to act immediately and file an injunction to freeze the property so they cannot sell it. I'm coming to your office right now. I made a U-turn and headed back to the law firm. On the way, I called my mom. Mom, I won't be back for lunch. I have things to handle. Lily, my mom's voice wavered. Just now, James's mother, Margaret, called me. My grip on the steering wheel tightened. What did she say? She said to tell you to stop throwing a tantrum and come home. She also said if you really dare to file for divorce, she'll have James kick you out onto the street and you won't get a single dime. My mom's voice trembled. Lily, why don't we just let it go? I won't fight it. I'll accept the slap. Just don't go to war with them. Mom. I cut her off, my voice light but resolute. If I were the one who got slapped yesterday, would you say let it go? Silence on the other end. You wouldn't. You would fight to the death to protect me, I continued. So right now, I need you to trust me. Let me protect you this time. And let me protect myself. After a long pause, my mom choked back a sob. Okay. Just be careful. At the law firm, Attorney Sterling had the files ready. The deed, James's bank statements, the wire transfer receipts, and even a contractor's agreement signed last month. $20,000 for a remodel paid from our joint account. I contacted the contractor. Sterling pushed his glasses up. They just started. Paid a 30% deposit. I'm having them halt construction pending a court order. Thank you. I flipped through the documents, my hands shaking slightly. All those times I rushed home to cook, clean, and mop the floors. All those weekends I spent taking Margaret to her doctor's appointments and the grocery store. All those late nights I stayed up editing Chloe's resume. James and his mother were scheming to buy a condo in her name. With my money. Miss Davis, based on this evidence, we will file a formal divorce petition today, alongside a motion for a temporary restraining order to freeze James's assets and place a lis pendens on the condo, Sterling said. Additionally, regarding the non-financial contributions you mentioned, please draft a detailed itemized list. It will support our claim for a disproportionate award of the state and potential spousal maintenance. I nodded, pulled out my phone, and started making a list in my notes app. Daily cooking, cleaning, laundry for 3 years. Doing Margaret's laundry and cleaning her room for 2.5 years after she moved in. Driving Margaret to medical appointments. Twice a month, approx. 60 times. Networking, resume building, and interview prep for Chloe Cooper, 3 jobs. Hospital caregiving for Arthur Cooper after his heart attack, 15 days, James visited 3 times, claiming work. Tutoring the Cooper family's nieces and nephews, approx. Transcession. Project managing our marital home renovations, 3 months, James absent. As I typed, my eyes burned. Not from self-pity, but from fury. How could I have been so stupid? Why did I reduce my life to being a stepping stone for someone else's family? Is this enough, Mr. Sterling? I handed him the phone. He skimmed it and nodded. Very thorough. However, I must manage your expectations. Family courts recognize this, but they don't usually award MAFSHA sums solely for chores. The real penalty will come from the financial fraud. I don't just want the cash value, I shook my head. I want them to know my labor wasn't an entitlement. I want the judge, and everyone else, to see the value of a homemaker's work even if the court assigns it a low dollar amount. I'm fighting for the principle. Sterling looked at me with a glint of respect. I understand. I will fight aggressively for you. He gathered the papers. Now, regarding the wedding gift money, your father gave you the down payment for the SUV. Do you have proof? Bank transfer records. It went from my mom's account to James's. The memo line says car down payment. Excellent. That classifies it as separate, non-marital property. We can claw it back. However, since the car is titled to James and bought during the marriage, he will argue it's joint property. Do you have anything else? I remembered the night before my wedding. My dad, uneasy about James, made him sign an IOU just as a formality. James was annoyed but signed it. I had kept it at my mom's house. An IOU. Sterling's eyes lit up. That is the silver bullet. Find it. By the time I left the firm, it was 2 p.m. I grabbed a quick bite and drove to my mom's house to hunt for the IOU. I dug through drawers of old documents for an hour before finally finding a yellowing piece of paper in an old tin box. James's sloppy handwriting read, I, James Cooper, acknowledge receipt of $30,000 from Robert Davis to be used as a down payment for a vehicle. Signed, James Cooper, the 18th of March 2021. The 18th of March, 2021, was a week before our wedding. My dad held my hand and said, Lily, this is your safety net. The car is in his name, but he needs to acknowledge the debt. I had laughed it off, telling my dad he was overthinking it. Looking at the note now, the tears finally fell. Dad, you were a better judge of character than I ever was. I carefully put the note in my purse. Just as I zipped it up, my phone rang. Another unknown number. I answered in silence. Lily. It's me. James sounded exhausted. Can we talk? About what? Not getting a divorce? I know I messed up. I really do. His voice was low. That condo. Mom forced me to buy it. She said the old house was uncomfortable and she wanted an upgrade. I told her we didn't have the cash. She told me to use our joint funds and that she'd pay us back later. I laughed out loud. James, your mother is 62. She lives on a $1,500 Social Security check. How is she paying us back? How are you paying it back? You were going to use my salary to pay me back? I would pay it back slowly. Did you know about the $60,000 CD? I asked. His breathing hitched. You knew. You set it up, I said. Your mom wanted a condo, so you locked a power cash in a CD in your name. In 3 years, when it matures, the principal plus interest would exactly cover what you borrowed. The condo stays in her name, the money gets repaid seamlessly, and no one is the wiser. And what am I? The Cooper family's free maid and personal ATM? No, Lily, listen to me. I don't need to listen. I cut him off. Tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. I'm filing the papers at the courthouse. This is your last chance to settle this amicably. If you don't show up, my lawyer files the contested petition and the TRO. Your mother's condo, your car, and your accounts will all be frozen. Think it over. Lily, do you have to be this ruthless? His voice spiked. 3 years of marriage. And you don't care about our bond at all? Our bond. James, when your mother slapped my mother, did you care about our bond? When you secretly siphoned our money to buy her a house, did you care? When I had a miscarriage and she said it was a good thing it died, did you care? Don't talk to me about our bond. You don't deserve to. I hung up. I sat on the floor of my childhood bedroom as the sky darkened outside. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my sister-in-law, Chloe. Lily, Mom knows she was wrong. She was just acting on impulse. For my brother's sake, come back. Let's just be a family. I didn't reply. Lily, I'll pay you back that $1,500. Just stop being mad, okay? Mom just wanted to secure a backup asset for us. She didn't mean anything malicious. Still, didn't reply. A minute later, a third text came through. Lily, don't be a bitch. My brother marrying you was a blessing for you. You're the daughter of a fish market vendor acting like you're some rich heiress. Divorced, who would want you? I looked at the message, smiled, took a screenshot, and saved it to my Evason folder. One more piece for the pile. The room grew pitch black. I stood up and turned on the lamp. The warm orange light flooded the room. This house had witnessed my innocence, and now it would witness my rebirth. The next morning at 8:00 a.m., I was already standing outside the King County Courthouse. The April morning was brisk. By 8:30, James still hadn't arrived. I sat on a bench, reviewing the petition and evidence list Attorney Sterling had prepped. Lily. A familiar voice sounded behind me. James stood a few feet away, wearing the dress shirt I bought him for our anniversary. He had dark circles under his eyes and a 5 o'clock shadow. He looked like he hadn't slept. "Did you bring your documents?" I stood up, my tone flat. "Lily, do we really have to do this?" He took a step closer, his voice raspy. "Mom really knows she was wrong. She cried all night. She said she's sorry to your mom. Look, she even told me to bring you this." He pulled out a red velvet box and opened it. Inside was a gold Cartier bracelet. The exact one my mother-in-law bought using our joint account. Mom said this is her apology. James held the box out. "Families fight. Come home with me, apologize to Mom, and we can move past this. Please?" I stared at the bracelet, glinting in the morning sun. Bought with my money, given to me as an apology, and expecting me to apologize to her. I let out a laugh. "James, does your family think I'm brain dead?" His face stiffened. "No. The money for this was borrowed. We'll pay it back." "When? How?" I stared him down. "Is there a promissory note? A repayment schedule? What's the interest rate?" He was left speechless. Finally, he mumbled. "Lily, you never used to be like this." "You're right. I didn't," I said. "I used to think loving someone meant loving their whole family. I thought tolerance was a virtue, and sacrifice would be rewarded. I thought genuine love would be returned with genuine love. But now I know." I looked at him, emphasizing every word. Tolerance buys you exploitation. Sacrifice buys you entitlement. Genuine love buys you a knife in the back. His face cycled from white to red, then back to white. "So save the bullshit." I checked the time. 8:50 a.m. "Do you have your ID and tax returns? If you do, let's go inside and sign the separation agreement." "Lily," he finally snapped. "Can't you just give my mother an out? She's an elder." Did she think about my mother being an elder when she slapped her? I fired back. That was an impulse. Your mom was being passive-aggressive." "What did my mom say?" I took a step forward, glaring at him. "She said, the kids have their own plans." What is wrong with that sentence? Why did it warrant a slap? "James, I spent 3 years with you. I can look myself in the mirror and say I did right by you and your family." My voice was quiet, but sharp as a scalpel. "Can your family say the same about me?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. "Whatever." I turned toward the courthouse doors. "You can sign the uncontested settlement now, or my lawyer serves you with the fraud lawsuit this afternoon. Choose." "Wait," he called out from behind me. I stopped, not looking back. "I'll sign it." He said the words clearly, sounding completely drained. At 9:00 a.m., the clerk's office opened. We walked in and pulled a ticket. The entire process felt like two strangers doing a business transaction. When reviewing the mediated property settlement template, the clerk asked, "Are you both in agreement?" "Yes," I said calmly. James just nodded. Under property division, I had drafted that each party keeps what is in their name, effectively waiving my claim to the condo in exchange for him returning my stolen funds. But James suddenly spoke up. "Wait. The car is in my name, but her dad paid the down payment. How do we handle that?" The clerk looked at him. "If it's in your name, you keep the car. The down payment can be structured as a buyout to her." I I don't have $30,000 right now. Write a legally binding payment plan. Monthly installments plus interest. I pulled out a pre-drafted contract, 3-year term, $1,000 a month. Interest calculated at the current bank loan rate. James glared at me like I was a monster. If you don't sign it, the car gets sold as a marital asset and we split the cash. I stared blankly back. He gritted his teeth, took the pen, signed the contract, and got it notarized. I tucked the contract into my folder. The clerk finalized the paperwork, handed us our stamped copies of the legal separation and asset division decree. In our state, the mandatory cooling-off period meant the divorce would be finalized in 90 days, but financially and legally, we were untangled. Stepping out of the courthouse. The sun was blinding. James followed me out, hesitating. The first payment is due next month. Don't be late, I said, turning to walk away. Lily, he jogged to catch up. Can we still be friends? I stopped and looked at him like he was a joke. James, we were never friends. Friends don't sit in silence while you get assaulted. Friends don't secretly steal your money. Friends don't vanish when you need them most in a hospital bed. So don't insult the word friend. I opened my car door. Goodbye. Actually, no, let's never see each other again. I started the car. In the rearview mirror, James stood on the sidewalk, holding his court folder like a statue. I felt zero lingering attachment. I hit the gas. 2 blocks later, my phone rang. It was my mom. Lily, how did it go? She asked, her voice tight. It's done, I said. A long silence followed, then a deep exhale. Good. Good. Where are you now? Heading to Attorney Sterling's office. You eat lunch first, Mom. I'll be back later. I opened my texts. Sterling had messaged, Miss Davis, how did it go? Agreements signed. Proceeding with Phase 2. Be there soon. Driving through the city, I suddenly felt the sky was impossibly blue. The clouds were white. Even the Seattle traffic was bearable. Ending a toxic relationship felt exactly like this, not grief, but the sheer, weightless relief of finally being able to breathe. That relief lasted exactly 30 minutes. Just as I parked at the law firm, an unknown number called. I answered it. Lily. Is it? A harsh, middle-aged woman's voice blared. I'm Margaret's sister, James's aunt. What the hell is wrong with you? You actually filed for divorce against my nephew? Do you have any idea how much a divorced woman's value drops? Let me tell you, it's not too late to come back and beg. My sister is soft-hearted. You get on your knees and grovel, and this will all blow over, Auntie. I cut her off. First, James and I have already signed the legal separation. We are legally severed. Second, if you harass me again, I will call the police. Third, please inform your sister to get her checkbook ready. Otherwise, I'll see her in civil court. I hung up and walked into the law firm. Attorney Sterling was waiting. Congratulations. He offered a rare smile. On what? On your new life. He pushed a thick file across the desk. This is the civil complaint against James and Margaret Cooper for fraudulent conveyance, civil conspiracy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We are demanding the return of the $250,000 for the condo, the $20,000 remodel fee, and $50, 0 inches, punitive damages. Review it and sign. I read it carefully. The demands were crystal clear. Will we win? The evidence is ironclad. We have a very high probability of winning, Sterling said. However, these civil cases drag on, and collection can be tricky if they declare bankruptcy. I signed my name. I'll wait as long as it takes. I need them to face the consequences. Also, regarding the car, even with the payment plan, I suggest you push to have him refinance it entirely out of his name, just so you aren't tied to any liability. If he refuses, we have the promissory note and the settlement agreement. We can garnish his wages, Sterling paused. Knowing his type, he'll fight it. He thinks since his name is on the title, it's his. Then we'll see him in court. It was noon by the time I left. I grabbed a quick sandwich and drove to the house to pack. Since the divorce was initiated, I needed to move out of the marital home. The house was in James's name, a premarital asset purchased by his parents. I didn't have much. A few boxes of clothes, books, and miscellaneous items. My mom came over to help. Lily, she sniffled as she packed. You've suffered so much these 3 years. I'm not suffering, I shook my head. I was just dumb. But I'm not dumb anymore. Halfway through packing, my phone rang. It was Chloe. Lily, you've got some nerve. You actually filed. She shrieked. You're suing me, brother? Have you no shame? Chloe, I said calmly. First, your brother committed financial fraud. I'm suing him to protect my legal rights. Second, if you don't want to be named as a co-defendant for receiving stolen funds, keep your mouth shut. Third, don't forget to pay back that $1,500 or I'll drag you into court too. Are you threatening me? If you have the guts, sue me. I'll be waiting. She slammed the phone down. I smiled and went back to packing. By 3:00 p.m., I called a couple of TaskRabbit movers. We were going to haul my boxes to Havenwood Apartments, a place I had hastily rented yesterday. As the moving truck pulled up to the neighborhood gate, it was blocked by a crowd of people. In the center, I heard familiar wailing. It was Margaret. She was sitting on the curb, pounding her chest, crying theatrically to any who would listen. Everyone, look at this. My daughter-in-law is divorcing my son over a tiny argument. My son is such a good man, works a great corporate job, honest to a fault, and she's not satisfied. And she's not just divorcing him, she's suing us. She's trying to drive our family to ruin. The neighborhood gossips were pointing and whispering. Wow. Young people today have no respect. A mother-in-law is still a mother, how could she do that? Divorcing over a petty fight, so irresponsible. I sat in the passenger seat of the moving van, finding the whole scene darkly hilarious. So this was her version of knowing she was wrong. Not apologizing. Not reflecting. But using public humiliation to force me to submit, or at least destroy my reputation. Miss, should we still go in? The driver asked, looking at me through their rearview mirror. Yes, I opened the door. Wait here a second, let me handle this. I walked toward the crowd. When Margaret saw me, she wailed even louder. Lily. You're here. Good. Tell everyone, was I bad to you? I treated you like my own daughter. How can you be so cruel? You're trying to force us into an early grave. The crowd's gaze shifted to me, condemning, curious, disgusted. I stood there, facing the judgment, and smiled. Mrs. Cooper, my voice wasn't loud, but it carried perfectly. You say you treated me like a daughter. Then please, tell everyone here, why did this daughter have to cook, clean, and do the laundry for your entire family for 3 years? Why, when you were hospitalized, did this daughter stay by your bed while your own son only visited 3 times? Why did this daughter have to use her connections to get your actual daughter a job? And why, when you bought a $250,000 condo, did this daughter pay for it, but only your name is on the deed? The crowd went dead silent. Margaret's face flashed from red to white. You're lying. Am I? A judge will decide that. I pulled out my phone and played the audio of the slap from yesterday. Smack. I'm educating your daughter on your behalf. A hen that can't lay eggs. You secretly recorded me. You scheming bitch. If I didn't, how could I prove you assaulted my mother? I looked at her coldly. Mrs. Cooper, if you want to make a scene, I have all day. If you want to cry, I brought tissues. But if you dare harass me or my family again, I will print out the bank statements showing you stealing my marital assets and tape them to every door in this neighborhood. I'll mail them to your son's HR department. I'll send them to your church group. Let everyone judge who the real victim is here. Margaret's crying stopped instantly. Her face turned the color of raw liver. The crowd's whispers shifted. Oh my God, they used her money to buy a house? That's awful. I turned back to the truck. Drive. The van slowly rolled past the stunned Margaret and the whispering crowd. In the side mirror, she looked smaller and smaller. Like a clown. Sometimes, you don't need magic to defeat a monster. You just have to drag them out into the sunlight. When the van parked in front of the house, I saw James standing by the front door. He was leaning against the wall, head down, surrounded by cigarette butts. He looked up as I approached. Are you really moving out? Obviously. I stepped past him to unlock the door. We can talk. He tried to grab my arm. I sidestepped him. James, we already filed the papers. What is there to talk about? Are we going to discuss how you'll continue funding your mother's lifestyle with my paycheck? He paled. My mom. She was just confused. You know how she is, she's getting old. Age is not an excuse for malice, I snapped. Lily, James blocked the doorway. Do you have to be so cold? Are you just throwing 3 years away? I looked at him, feeling an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. James. You threw 3 years away first. When your mother slapped my mother, when you wired our money to her account, when I lost our baby, and you said we're still young. You threw it away long ago. I pushed the door open and froze. The living room was a disaster zone. My belongings were piled in the corner like trash. Clothes, books, expensive cosmetics, all jumbled together. A $1,200 wool coat I had saved up for months to buy was thrown on the floor, covered in a mysterious greasy stain. In the center of the room sat several brand new suitcases and moving boxes. They were filled with clothes. None of them were mine. Margaret walked out of the master bedroom. She froze when she saw me, then lifted her chin defiantly. So you decided to show up. I ignored her, looking at the pile of my things. What is the meaning of this? What do you mean? Margaret scoffed. Weren't you moving out? I helped pack for you, so you wouldn't dilly-dally and delay my move-in. Your move-in? She smiled smugly. Yes. My son already agreed to let me live here. My old place is too far from downtown. It's not convenient. I looked at James. He avoided my gaze, stammering, Lily. You're moving out anyway. The house would just be empty. This house was bought by your parents before we married. I cut him off. But who paid the mortgage for the last 3 years? He fell silent. The mortgage was paid from our joint account. That means a portion of the equity in this house is a marital asset. I have the right to petition the court for a forced sale. Attorney Sterling had mentioned this, but I wanted a clean break and didn't want the headache of a drawn-out property battle, so I had initially let it go in the separation agreement. Now, I realized I was being way too nice. James, you moved fast, I laughed. Signed the papers this morning, moved your mom in by noon. What? Afraid I'd change my mind and demand my cut of the house. No, Lily, you're misunderstanding, he panicked. Mom just wanted to stay for a few days. Misunderstanding? I walked over to the pile and picked up the stained $1.200 coat. Is this a misunderstanding too? Margaret's face twitched, but she puffed out her chest. If you leave your junk lying around, whose fault is that? My junk was hanging in the closet. I looked at the closet. It was half empty, now filled with Margaret's clothes. Who took my things out and threw them on the floor? I did. So what? Margaret yelled. This is my son's house. I can do whatever I want. Okay. I nodded, pulled out my phone, and started taking pictures. What are you doing? Margaret lunged for my phone. I dodged her. Documenting evidence, I said as I snapped photos. Vandalism and destruction of private property. In Washington state, malicious mischief exceeding $1,000 is a Class C felony. This coat was $1,200. This cashmere sweater was $400. These limited edition shoes, $600. Who are you trying to scare? Margaret's voice wavered, but she tried to act tough. Those are used. They aren't worth anything. The judge decides what they're worth. I finished taking pictures and pointed at her suitcases. Are these yours? Yes. What about it? Nothing. I put my phone away. Just reminding you, James, under our agreement, you kept the house. But if your family keeps pushing me, I will gladly file an amendment to demand an equitable division of the mortgage equity. The court will decide how much of this house I own. Decide carefully if you want to move your mother in, or if you want to sell this place and cut me a check for $50,000. You wouldn't dare. Margaret screamed. This is my son's house. You're an outsider. Keep dreaming. Legally, I am his soon-to-be ex-wife. I stared her down. I have every right to claim marital equity. Also, Margaret, a quick reminder. Those shoes you're wearing? I bought them for your birthday last year for $400. That handbag? I had a friend bring it back from Europe for $1,500. If you want to move in here, take them off and give them back. Since we are no longer family, you don't get to wear my money. Margaret recoiled as if she had been burned, instinctively clutching the handbag to her chest. James looked absolutely sick. Lily, don't go too far. I'm going too far? I looked at him, finding the audacity staggering. James, your mother threw my expensive clothes on the floor like garbage. You are trying to move her into a house I helped pay the mortgage on. She is wearing clothes I bought with my money. And I am going too far? Do you think the universe revolves around the Cooper family? He was at a loss for words. I don't have time for this. I turned to the movers waiting at the door. Guys, could you come grab these boxes? Please be careful not to get them dirty. Sure thing, ma'am. The movers stepped in and started hauling the stuff. Don't touch that. Margaret rushed forward to block them. That's our family's stuff. Your stuff? I picked up a photo album. Inside were our wedding pictures. Is this yours? That belongs to my son. Fine. I tossed it directly at James's chest. Keep it. I picked up a decorative box. It held souvenirs from our trips, gifts he had bought me, and knickknacks I loved. I bought these, or they were gifted to me. I'm taking them. Any objections? I looked at James. He swallowed hard and shook his head. Margaret tried to protest again, but James grabbed her arm. Mom. Stop. Why should I stop? She yanked her arm away. Those cost money. Why does she get to take them? Because I paid for them. I looked at Margaret, enunciating every syllable. Margaret, do you want me to print out the bank statements and calculate exact how much of your life was funded by me? Do you want a reminder? Her face turned purple. Her lips trembled, but she couldn't say a word. Mom. James growled. Shut up. She finally went quiet, but glared at me with absolute venom. I ignored her and finished packing. Anything useful I kept. Anything useless, or anything that annoyed me, including the happy couple customized mugs we got for our wedding, I threw straight into the trash can. When the movers had loaded the last box, I pulled my house key off my keychain and dropped it on the shoe rack. Here's your key, I said. James looked up at me. His eyes were a chaotic mix of regret, frustration, and maybe a tiny bit of longing. But it had nothing to do with me anymore. Lily, his voice cracked. Is there really no going back? I stopped at the doorway and looked back at him. James, do you know what my biggest regret is? He shook his head. My biggest regret isn't marrying you, I said slowly. It's losing myself after I married you. I turned and walked away. The door closed behind me, shutting out the face of the man I had loved for 3 years and the place I used to call home. Where to? Miss? The driver asked as I buckled my seatbelt. Havenwood Apartments, I said. The name sounded cliché, but I liked it. Starting today, I was living for myself. As the truck pulled out of the neighborhood, the house in the rearview mirror grew smaller and smaller, fading into the distance like a bleached memory, soon to be buried by time. My phone rang. It was Attorney Sterling. Miss Davis, the civil complaint has been filed with the court. Also, about the car, I suggest we force the title transfer immediately so James doesn't try any funny business. I'll handle the DMV paperwork tomorrow, I said. One more thing. Our investigator noted that Margaret Cooper has been contacting real estate agents. She's trying to list the Grandview condo. I raised an eyebrow. That fast? Guess she's terrified of the asset freeze. I've already filed the emergency injunction with the judge. There is a lispendens on the title as of 1 hour ago. She cannot legally sell it until the lawsuit is resolved, Sterling said. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. My pleasure. I hung up and looked out the window. Spring had truly arrived in Seattle. The trees lining the street were budding with vibrant, fresh green leaves. I rolled down the window, letting the breeze in. It smelled like rain and cherry blossoms. Turns out, when you leave the wrong person, even the air tasted sweeter. By the time I arrived at Havenwood Apartments, it was getting dark. The one-bedroom apartment was 600 square feet, simple but clean. I dragged my boxes into the living room. Looking at the pile, the place felt a bit empty. Not physically, but emotionally. But that emptiness was quickly interrupted by my phone ringing. It was a number I vaguely recognized. Hello? Lily? Is this Lily? A warm, older woman's voice came through. It's Martha, from the old neighborhood. I used to babysit you when you were little. I blinked, remembering my mom's old neighbor, who had moved away a few years ago. Martha! Hi, what's going on? Oh, Lily, I saw your mom at the grocery store today. She had a huge bruise on her face. What happened? Martha sounded deeply concerned. I asked her, and she said she bumped into a door, but I know a handprint when I see one. Tell me the truth, did that wicked mother-in-law of yours do that? I gripped my phone. I hadn't wanted to broadcast my mom getting hit, but clearly, I couldn't hide it. Yes, Martha. Margaret hit her. I knew it! Martha's voice spiked in anger. That arrogant witch. She thinks just because her son wears a suit to work, she's royalty. I told your mom your saga that family was bad news, but she didn't listen. Martha, I gently interrupted. Did you call just to ask about that? Oh, right, the main thing. Martha lowered her voice. Lily, I heard you're divorcing James, and you're suing them to get back money they stole. Word travels fast. Yes, Martha. He diverted our joint funds to buy his mom a condo. I'm fighting to get it back. Good. You have to. Martha cheered. Don't let them get away with a dime. But Lily, the reason I'm calling, is that condo at the Grandview? Yes. How did you know? I heard it through the grapevine. Martha paused. My good friend, Mrs. Higgins, lives at the Grandview. She told me that last month, Margaret brought Eamon over to look at the unit. She was telling the neighbors her son was going to remodel it so he could move in after he got married. But Mrs. Higgins knows what James looks like from your wedding photos. And that man wasn't James. My brain buzzed. Not James? Then who was it? I don't know, but Mrs. Higgins said the guy looked to be in his 30s, wore wire-rimmed glasses, and looked very corporate. He was super chummy with Margaret. Called her Mom, and said he was going to move her in to take care of her. I gripped the phone, my palms suddenly turning cold. If Martha was telling the truth, this wasn't just a simple case of transferring marital assets. Martha, can I get in touch with Mrs. Higgins? I really need to talk to her. Of course. I'll text you her number. Lily, you need to be careful. Don't let that family blindside you. After hanging up, I quickly received the number. Mrs. Higgins lived in Unit 402, right below Margaret's unit. I hesitated for a few seconds before dialing. Hello? A slightly raspy voice answered. Mrs. Higgins? Hi, I'm Lily, Martha's friend. I was hoping to ask you about your upstairs neighbor, Margaret Cooper. The line went quiet for a moment. Martha told me you might call. Honey, are you in the middle of a lawsuit with your ex trying to get the money for that condo back? Yes, I am. Then I need to warn you. You might not get it back. Mrs. Higgins sighed. Last month, I saw Margaret bring a man to the condo. They were talking in the hallway while I was getting my mail. I heard the man tell her that once the remodel was done, she should sell her old house and keep the cash for her retirement. Do you remember what the man looked like? Tall, wore gold wire-rimmed glasses, very articulate. Margaret called him Richard. Richard. My mind raced. A corporate guy in his 30s, glasses. A name sudden popped into my head. Richard Vance, James's college roommate and best friend. I had met him a few times. He was a regional sales manager for a tech firm. Last year, James mentioned Richard had gone through a nasty divorce and they had been drinking together frequently. Mrs. Higgins, thank you so much for telling me this. It's incredibly important. No problem, honey. Honestly, I couldn't stand the way that woman acted. Mrs. Higgins paused. Listen, if you need a witness for court, I'll testify. I actually have a recording. They were talking so loudly in the hallway, my Ring doorbell camera caught the whole conversation. A recording? Really? I practically jumped off the couch. Mrs. Higgins, could you please email that to me? Or I can come to you. Just come over, honey. I'll text you the address. We can chat. I hung up, immediately texted attorney Sterling the update, and grabbed my coat. Just as I reached the door, my mom called. Lily, where are you? Did you eat? Mom, I have an errand to run. Don't wait up for me. Lily. My mom's voice wavered. Margaret called me again. Her again. What did she say? She said she wants to meet me at a coffee shop tomorrow to talk. My mom sounded tense. She said if I don't show up, she's going to come to my work and make a scene until I get fired. My anger flared instantly. Mom, do not go, I said firmly. You have nothing to discuss with her. If she calls again, block her. But if she really comes to my work to cause a scene, let her. I took a deep breath. Mom, trust me. She doesn't have the guts. And you're 2 years away from retirement. What are you afraid of? If she shows up, call 911. Harassment, trespassing, disturbing the peace. Let her spend a night in jail. Are you sure it'll be okay? It'll be fine, Mom. I softened my tone. Your daughter isn't someone they can step on anymore. If she comes looking for trouble, I'll make sure she regrets it. After comforting my mom, I drove straight to the Grandview. On the way, I couldn't stop thinking. Margaret, an uneducated, arrogant woman, suddenly became a mastermind at hiding assets and using loopholes to buy a house. Someone was pulling the strings. And Richard Vance, a corporate sales manager who dealt with contracts and legalities daily, knew exactly how the system worked. If Richard was helping them, what was his angle? Helping his buddy's mom commit fraud? Unless there was something in it for him. I arrived at the Grandview at 8:00 p.m. It was a nice, quiet complex. I found Unit 402 and rang the bell. A kind-faced woman in her 60s opened the door. You must be Lily. Come on in. Mrs. Higgins, I'm so sorry to bother you this late. Nonsense. She poured me a whole glass of water. Martha told me everything. You've had a rough go of it. Here, look at this. She pulled up the Ring app on her iPad. I hit play. First, there was the sound of keys jingling, then a man's voice, chuckling. Don't worry, Margaret. This deed is solely in your name. Nobody can touch it. Once the remodel is done, you move in. You sell the old house, and that cash is your retirement fund. Perfect setup. It was Richard Vance. I recognized his voice perfectly. Then Margaret's voice, dripping with flattery. Oh, Richard, you're a lifesaver. James is so whipped by that wife of his. If you hadn't warned me, that woman would have bled my son dry in a divorce. You're too kind, Margaret. James is my brother. Helping you is helping him. Besides, with this house in your name, it belongs to you. Even if Lily finds out, she's screwed. Legally, it's a third-party asset, but the money came from James and Lily's joint account. What if she sues me? Let her try. I've got a buddy who's a defense lawyer. We'll make sure she gets nothing. Just stick to the story. James loaned you the money. You'll pay him back eventually. A judge can't force you to sell your primary residence over an IOU to your son. You are so smart, Richard. Thank God for you. The video clipped out as they walked inside. I sat staring at the screen, my hands trembling. Not from anger, but from pure adrenaline. With this video, combined with the bank statements, I had absolute proof of a coordinated conspiracy to defraud me of marital assets. Richard Vance, as an active co-conspirator, was going down with them. Mrs. Higgins, can you send me this file? And, would you be willing to testify in a deposition if it comes down to it? I asked earnestly. She hesitated for a moment. I'll testify. Will there be trouble? I know Margaret is a piece of work, and I don't want her banging on my door. I promise you, my lawyer will handle everything to protect you. Testifying is just telling the truth. It's helping me get justice. I squeezed her hand. I can even ask the court to ensure your privacy. Don't worry about it, Mrs. Higgins waved her hand. I've seen women get steamrolled in divorces before. I won't let it happen to you. I'm in. Thank you, Mrs. Higgins. My eyes burned with gratitude. Don't thank me. Just make sure you keep your eyes wide open next time, honey. Don't marry into a family like that ever again. I won't. I left the Grandview at 9:00 p.m. Sitting in my car, I emailed the video file to Attorney Sterling, then called him. Mr. Sterling, did you get the video? I did. It's perfectly clear. Sterling actually sounded excited. Miss Davis, you just handed me a smoking gun. With this, plus the financial records, this is a slam dunk. We are going to amend the complaint to add Richard Vance for tortious interference and civil conspiracy. I'll subpoena his financial records too. I guarantee he got a kickback for orchestrating this. Should we tell them we have it? Absolutely not. Let them perjure themselves in their depositions first. Once they lie under oath, we drop the hammer. Understood. I hung up and looked out the windshield. The night was dark, but the city was illuminated by thousands of lights. Every window was a home. Where was my home? It was in that temporary apartment, at my mother's house, and wherever my future took me. My phone vibrated. James again. I let it go to voicemail. He texted, Lily, let's settle this out of court. I'll give you the $30,000 for the car right now in cash, plus an extra $15,000. If you drop the lawsuit against my mom, please. I looked at the message and smiled. Now he was terrified. It was too late. I typed 3 words and hit send, see you in court. Then, I blocked his number for good. The cool spring breeze swept through the car as I merged onto the highway. Tomorrow would be the beginning of a brutal legal war, but I wasn't afraid anymore. Because this time, I was fighting for myself.